Howdy, everyone. I figured I'd jump up here onto Zoom and do a quick recording to show you the final outcome of my DesignSpark mechanical process and the camera housing that I decided to make with the VX-5000 Microsoft webcam. Let's see here. I'm going to see if I can show you a picture of the webcam so you can see what I'm talking about. So let me just jump into here and see if I have one. Not sure if I have one stored on my computer or not. I might have taken it a different way. All right, let's see if we can find it a different way. So I'm going to share my display, and just for the heck of it, we're going to jump into Google Chrome here for a moment. Let me just move it over here so you can see it. And let's do a search for Microsoft VX-5000. And let's look at images. So here you can see this is what the camera looks like. And the problem that I had was this mounting, this thing. Yeah, it's intended to like sit on a desk or sit maybe clipped over the top of your display monitor, and it didn't lend itself well for doing what I wanted to do on my desktop with YouTube. So so I decided to go ahead and take this case off and get rid of this silly mounting. And so I'm going to stop the share. So I decided to do that and make a new case for the printed circuit board that's inside the camera, and allow me to be able to mount it on a tripod. And I figured probably the easiest way to go would be a Gopro mount, only because I don't know how to do screw threads in my design software yet. I just haven't figured that out yet. So I began this process, and ultimately, let me go back to the share here, and I'm going to share DesignSpark. And so what I ended up with is this design. And now this design is a very iterative design process. So the very first thing I did was I created this case. Now, there were many iterations of this case. I didn't have the GoPro mount on it. I didn't have I didn't have the channel for the cable that went up the side. I figured out the very first thing was the outline of the printed circuit board and a place to put the microphone, and then you know, the screw holes in the corner to hold the board in place, and then, you know, the screw holes to hold the case together. Originally, I had planned on having a lid, and I was going to use the original screws to screw the thing together. But ultimately, what I ended up doing was I made these little dimples that poke into little holes on the top of the inside of the lid. So these are just spheres that I created. They're just 2mm spheres, and I embedded them in the side. And then I made a couple of 2mm holes in the top and put those in the places where the spheres would come out. So you just have to sit down and think about how you want to do some things. And so this is the case. And then I found a GoPro image on YouTube, on rather on Google, and I found out what the dimensions are for the GoPro mount. And then I figured, okay, I'll use that on the bottom rather than try to do screw threads and what have you. So this is the bottom of the case. This is where the circuit board sits and everything gets attached to it. All right. And then little things I had to do was like figure out how to get the cable connectors through the back, and so I could plug it into the board. And then I put a cable tie hole here so I could anchor the cable to the back of the case. And I mean, I made it as nice as I could possibly make it. So now I had to have a lid. So I went ahead and I created the lid. Now, the front of the lid is just a flat place. And this was one of the original screw holes I kept. I'm still not using it, but you'll see why. And then, of course, this is the opening for the lens. And ultimately, I decided to add a focusing wheel because the original camera did not focus. It had a set focus, and that was it. But the actual lens itself, mechanism for the camera, has a focusing wheel. And so I unglued it and decided to fashion a focusing wheel that would manipulate that internal focusing wheel for the lens. So that way I could use it on my desk and I could focus at various different distances. And and then in doing that, I couldn't put screws underneath unless I countersunk them with countersunk screws. And so I decided to forego the screws and create these dimples with the holes in the side. And the advantage is I can now put this thing together without any tools. So here is the bottom side of the lid. And let me just kind of scoot it over here. Oops. And so you can see here's the place where the top of the microphone comes in. And then this is, of course, the lens hole. And then this is the channel, the outline of the board, and then a little indentation to allow the cables to fit properly. So this wasn't too bad to design. It was interesting. I rounded the corners, made it look nice. Okay, and then the other thing I added was this little lip down here that goes into, let me just open this back up again, goes into this little channel down here on the top of the GoPro mount. And it just helps me keep the bottom of the camera popped in where it needs to be. So you put the bottom part of the lid in, and then you snap it in place with the little dimples in the holes. So that way there's no tools required. Okay, so now let me turn these elements off and turn the focus wheel on, because the focus wheel was interesting. So I had to figure out how to create patterns in DesignSpark. So I figured that out, and that was not an easy process because there's very little information about creating patterns, and that's a little confusing. So, but I created enough patterns to make these little knurled things around the focus wheel to give you a little bit of grip. And then, of course, we have the center hole for the lens, and then we have to have these little teeth that go into the internal focus mechanism to turn that gear. So I created that. And that was interesting. And then I had to figure out a way to keep the focus wheel in to the camera without it popping out. And so I created these two little ears that just kind of go into the edge. They push into the edge of the lens opening on the front of the case. And they just, it's a very tight fit, but you push it through and it's fine. And so that way, that keeps the focus wheel attached to the front of the camera, and everything fits very, very well. So that's how the process finally came out. This is the entire camera case in an exploded view, so you can see what's going on. Let me just kind of jump that up a little bit and hit the home key. And so it was a fun project. I got to learn a lot about 3D design and the iterative design process, and of course, DesignSpark Mechanical. So DesignSpark is very easy to use. I think it's easier to use than Fusion 360. But the nice thing about it is it doesn't require a broadband connection. And so I'll just leave that there. It's been a fun project, and the camera's working. You'll see it in videos here on my channel. So God bless y'all. My name is Ben Brady, and I am the 3D Printing Texan.